Well, hey there, YouTube. It's Dave Turner here, and I'm going to do a quick review of the Tone Monster SBK-3D bass preamp I have installed on my 1992 Carvin LB-76. I've owned this Carvin since new. I bought it new, and it came with Carvin H50N humbucker pickups with a active preamp, and it was a setup that I never really liked the sound of. It was very sterile sounding to me, and I could never get the mid-range punch I needed. It's the original 4-knob version, so it had a volume, a blend, a high, and a bass, a treble and a bass, tone controls only. This one's sold. It doesn't even have the battery slot on the back as well. So I had this bass for a long time. It was stolen from me. I recovered it about 20 years later from someone who brought it into Guitar Center. There's another video that I'll link up in the corner if you want to watch that. And so about 3 or 4 years ago, I bought some Carvin J99A passive single coils, and I gutted all the electronics out of it. I put those in. I had a good friend of mine wired up for me. We had a volume, a blend, a basic tone knob with just a regular tone cap, and then a switch that did series and parallel. And I was pretty happy with that. The sound was improved, a lot more clarity from the single coils, a lot more brightness, a little bit more mid-range. I was basically happy with the sound of the bass. But after a few years of having it that way and discovering that I really never did use the series parallel switch and that I still was desiring a little bit more mid-range, I decided to put in the Tone Monster SBK-3D preamp, which is a 4-knob setup. So I've got the volume, I've got the blend like you'd expect. I've got a stacked knob here. Top knob is treble, which is 4K. The bottom knob is bass, which is 60 hertz. And then there's a mid-range knob that's about 800 hertz. So what I'm gonna do is talk about the pros and cons of this preamp setup that I got, and then I'll give a quick demonstration of the tonal variety that I got from installing it. So first things first, the pros of this preamp are the price. It's well under $100 in the fall of 2022. Incredibly good bargain. It has a completely transparent sound, so when I installed this preamp, going from passive back to electronic, I thought, well, maybe it'll sound a little bit different. You know, who knows what it's going to sound like? Well, when the knobs are flat, it sounds exactly the same as it did before. There's absolutely no coloration of the sound by the preamp itself. Another great thing about this preamp is that it's pre-wired, so there's very little soldering to do. The only soldering you have to do is desolder your old setup and then solder the ground wires from the pickups onto the volume knob pot. Everything else is pre-wired or uses screw connectors. And then another pro of this preamp is that the gain is great. This bass is a lot louder now than it was before, so I have a lot more gain, so I don't have to work the amp as much. It's all right here in the bass. And again, it does it without coloring the sound in any way. And finally, another pro that I would list is that the response from the bass controls and the mid-range controls are extremely impressive. It's plus or minus 12 dB in either direction, and you can really get a lot of booty when you roll that 60 hertz up, and the mid-range gives you just tons of room for adding some honk or some mid-range bump there if that's what you're going for. Let's talk about the cons of this preamp. The things I didn't like about it is that the solderless, being solderless, you have some wires that you have to push in and screw down, and the little plastic case that these wires go into is fragile. Mine was cracked on delivery. I thought it might be a problem, but it turns out it was not a problem. It still functions just fine, but it's a nylon plastic case that you're putting these wires into and screwing them down, and it is delicate. The second thing is that the screws that you do are very small. They do give you a screwdriver to do it. That's a flathead. I used a small Phillips to lower the risk of stripping the screws out. But again, these are really, really tiny screws, and you pretty much have to tighten them as much as you can without breaking stuff for them to really grab that wire. There's not a lot of room for them to bite down on that wire. So I have had issues in other Tone Monster setups where that wire is kind of popped out and I had to go back and put it in there again. The another con, at least on this bass, is the stacked knob. The shaft for the pot on the stacked knob was bigger than the hole in the bass, so I did have to drill out that hole to 3/8 of an inch. I believe it was 3/8. So be prepared to do some drilling through the body cavity if your hole is not large enough for the for the shaft of the pot to go through. Another thing that I didn't like so much about this is it seems like the treble response, maybe it's just the frequency that you're getting, doesn't do a whole lot, and I'll demonstrate that in a minute. It could be the amps I'm playing through. I'm playing through a Mark Bass Command II. It's an older amp. It doesn't have a tweeter any longer. It's just the 12-inch speaker. It should be enough for full range sound, but I'm not really hearing a lot of difference with that treble response. And then finally, the wiring for the whole setup that's pre-wired, it's really stiff. So as you're putting it into the cavity, you really have to kind of reef on the wires and get them to bend down to where you want them to be, which is a little distressing because you're worried about breaking things off or causing a short or anything like that. So I guess it's just the way it goes when you pre-wire things, but it has its own way of wanting to sit in that tone cavity, and to get it all to fit in there, you really have to bend things over and bend wires and get it stuff down in there, and that did stress me out a little bit, thinking that I was going to break something or maybe cause something to go awry. All right, let's hear this bass right now. I'm going to turn the volume all the way up, and everything right now is flat, and so I'm going to just play through the different settings here. I'll do a C to C 3-octave scale. I'll change pickup sounds so you can hear the two pickups and the combination, and then I'll add in the treble, the mid, and the bass, and you can see what that sounds like. So here's the bass, just with everything flat, and I'll do a C to C scale, and we're on both pickups equally. Let's go to the bridge pickup only. Let's try that again. In there, no extra charge for that. Let's do the neck pickup. Okay. Let's go back to both pickups equally. Let's add in all the treble, so plus 12 at 4K. And let's roll that back down to 0. Now let's add in, let's take that away. Let's roll the 4K off 12K. I think I noticed more difference taking the 4K off than adding it in. Okay, so go back to flat, both pickups. Let's add in plus 12 of the 800. do minus 12 dB at 800. And then finally, let's add in plus 12 at 60. Let's roll that off 12 dB. So minus 12 dB at 60. Like I said, the mid-range and the bass knobs seem to make the biggest difference, not so much with the treble control. One thing that I think is really interesting, I'll show you the bridge pickup adding in that 800K. Roll the treble off. I think that's a much more usable kind of finger funk tone with adding that 800K in on the bridge pickup, so I'm really happy with that. That's kind of what this bass was missing, was that burpy mid-range sound. Here it is without. Oh, that's the wrong way. Nope, no, that was right. Here it is with again. And then another thing I was trying to go for was maybe more of a John Patitucci, Ken Smith sound, which is for him, most of the time he was on the neck pickup. My neck pickup up here is not Patitucci sounding at all. It's a lot more Fender-y, so I thought if I could add in some 800, I might get closer. Maybe a little bit, not really though. If I take off some of the bass, add some treble. It's maybe a little better, but not really. I think this bass can do a pretty good John Patitucci sound when he was playing the Yamahas, but it really doesn't get that Ken Smith sound like I was hoping it would. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you made it this far, please hit that subscribe button, and if you have some questions or comments about this preamp or this bass, do leave your comments there and I will answer your questions. All right, everybody, thanks, take care, see you again.